say when you're in a moment of crisis or trauma, you're likely to develop one of three reactions: fight, flight, or freeze. For which of these three Fs are you fated? Which way will the pendulum swing? There is simply no way to predict until you find yourself faced with the unthinkable. During acts of terror, some have the natural instinct to fight. Adrenaline kicks in, clarity is found in chaos, thoughts connect to action, and well, you simply fight like hell to survive. Others have a natural urge and instinct tending toward flight, to literally remove themselves from the traumatic situation by any means possible, to get the F out. The third F, freeze. You tune out, black out, your mind leaves your body behind, or sometimes the experience, the thoughts, the feelings, and the senses become heightened, but you are stuck, paralyzed, unable to react, frozen, waiting for the pain to end. That was the case for me. Let me take you back nearly 2 decades to the place where it all began. Picture me then, a sassy yet eager to please 11-year-old girl, young looking for my age, fine blonde hair in a wispy ponytail tied back with a velvet scrunchie, working late in my mom's chocolate shop to help with the holiday rush. I was, as usual, chewing, popping, and snapping my gum as I worked away in the shop alongside a trusted and well-loved caretaker, my nanny, who we called Waldy. While I'd come to love Waldy in the months since she entered our home, it certainly didn't start out that way. Quite the opposite, in fact. She was a big hulking lady. Not the Mary Poppins type nanny I dreamed of, nowhere near it. I didn't like her, not at all, not one bit, and I made it quite clear I did not want her to join our household. But, being 10 at the time, I was completely overruled. And like I said, it didn't take long for those things to change. Begrudgingly at first, I started to like having Waldy around. She made me feel safe, loved, and cared for. And by that December, she'd begun to fill a real void for me. A mix of a mother, friend, and big sister, always giving me the front seat, something very coveted in a family with 3 kids, letting me stay up later than my siblings, and giving me extra dessert without even having to ask. My parents trusted Waldy too. She made our somewhat dysfunctional family work. Now back to that day in the chocolate shop. We were working side by side when Waldy asked me to stop chewing my gum like a cow and act like a lady. "Oh yeah? What are you gonna do about it?" I replied, hands on my hips, as always, in my oversized denim overalls, my favorite ones with the shiny silver buttons and velvet detailing to match my scrunchie. From the moment Waldy stepped toward me, I knew something had shifted. The way she was looking at me with a gleam in her eye that made my stomach turn, and my gut told me something awful was about to happen. But I loved Waldy, and my parents did too. She was my family. Still, I knew something was wrong. Having no guidance on how to react, when I felt unsafe, I froze. While it couldn't have been more than 3 seconds, Waldy's approach felt like an eternity. I remember every drawn-out moment. I remember the sickness in my stomach. I remember the beating of my heart so loud, so hard, and so fast, like it was going to jump right out of my chest. I remember the screaming in my head, the silence in my throat, and the taste of our shared saliva. But most of all, I remember the lead in my feet. By the time she reached me, standing far too close for comfort, a lion in front of a lamb, I was completely frozen, paralyzed. And then it happened. She proceeded to take the gum out of my mouth with her tongue. my abyss, my abuse, my assault, it had all begun. This was the first moment, the first time, the first day that would come to define me for far too long. I will never forget the clink, thud of my gum hitting the bottom of the metal trash can as Waldy spit it out and walked away. On the car ride back to my house, I was unable to speak, unable to think, unable to move, unable to comprehend what had just happened or what in the world, what in the universe I, an 11-year-old little girl, was going to do next. All I did know was that I couldn't tell anyone. Fight, flight, or freeze? I had frozen, and then I felt the most sinister F of all, that this was all somehow my fault. Now, it's important to understand that survivors of trauma usually have no conscious choice of how they will react, but that doesn't stop the conscious mind from feeling shock, shame, blame, or guilt about these responses. This is one of the reasons I knew I couldn't tell anyone about what had happened and what continued to happen for 6 very long years. Physical, sexual, emotional abuse, which occurred every day, before school, after school, oftentimes while my parents were in the very next room, or while my brother was in the very same bed. It happened on family vacations and in store dressing rooms. There was no escape. I felt ashamed of and trapped by my initial normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Every day that went by without my disclosure, the more trapped, isolated, and hopeless I felt, and the deeper into the abyss of abuse I fell. Like Alice in Wonderland. But the rabbit hole I'd fallen down didn't lead to a world of wonder. Quite the opposite, in fact. Waldy was a skilled predator and would say things to feed into these feelings of guilt and self-doubt, ensuring my silence, my submission, and her complete control. If you tell, no one will believe you, she'd say. They'll send you away. They would be so ashamed of you. You don't want that baby, do you? Today, I know these things to be false, statements made by a predator looking to keep her prey in and under her control. But I was a child. I felt trapped. I thought I was the only one in the whole world in a situation like this. And that F loomed above me every morning, noon, and night. Fault. Now, I want to put my experience into perspective. You may be looking at me, a blonde-haired, green-eyed, upper-class girl whose private gated neighborhood couldn't keep out a monster, living in my own home. I am one of 42 million survivors of childhood sexual abuse living in the United States today. The World Health Organization estimates that 150 million girls and 73 million boys are victims of child sexual abuse worldwide. Right now, about 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will become victims of sexual abuse before their 18th birthday. Let that sink in. 223 million children. A silent epidemic. Millions of children worldwide suffering right now, and millions of adults living with unresolved effects of childhood trauma. I am part of that statistic, one of the millions. And chances are very, very good that you know someone, love someone, share a life with someone who has also experienced childhood sexual abuse, someone who is or was fighting for their life, for control of their body, for survival. Because true surviving is more than just living through something. That's only the beginning of a long and painful healing journey. After 6 long years, I found my voice and disclosed the abuse I had been suffering at the hands of a monster that we all knew. There's a lot that I remember from that time. My parents asking if they should hug me or if they shouldn't touch me. The tearful, frightened look in my siblings' eyes, and the hateful and hurtful whispers of cruel former friends. But there's a lot that shifts in and out of focus, like the drip, drip, drip of the IV while I was hospitalized, battling anorexia and self-harm. Sleepless days and nights, delusional with fatigue, but too terrified to close my eyes for even a second for fear I would see Waldy staring back at me. Battling PTSD, something I still struggle with to this day. Recovery, survival is often 3 steps forward and 10 steps back. But with the help of trauma counselors and the support of family and friends, I fought my way back from victim to survivor and then thriver. I got past my abuse. I was finally able to let go of that incendiary F. I knew the abuse I suffered had become my ex, but was still struggling to figure out the why. I continued on my path. I went to school to become a teacher because I wanted to protect children in ways I was unable to be kept safe. I looked closely at my students and tried to figure out the root causes of their challenges. I began digging a little deeper and asking why, for them and for me. One day, after a lesson that began with reading readiness had naturally evolved into a discussion about body boundaries and safety, one of my students, a little girl, bounded towards me, excited to tell me about a game she and her daddy liked to play, Shucky. At the end of a very long day, I thought, okay, great. Her father is engaged in her development and is playing with her at home. How wonderful. I went home feeling warm and fuzzy. Later that evening, I did what I'd been training myself to do, not only as an educator or protector of children, but also as an advocate, to think twice, to think a little deeper, and analyze things one step beyond, to ask why. The next day, I asked the little girl to show or tell me how she and her daddy played Shucky. She began to explain. We only play Shucky when Mommy isn't home. It doesn't even hurt me anymore. Daddy says that means I'm getting better at it. But then, a look of panic crossed the little girl's face, and she started shifting from one foot to the next, nervously wringing her hands as she disclosed a secret. She knew she wasn't supposed to tell their little secret. Please don't tell, Miss Lauren. Daddy will be so mad. My heart broke in that moment, and it has for every child who has disclosed to me since. I wish that I could say cases like this were unique, that they never happen. But the reality is, they happen every day, every hour, every minute to a child somewhere in the world. In that moment, and all moments forward, I realized A, no longer stood for abuse, but rather advocacy. My own abuse had become my ex and caused me to continue to ask why. I'd realized my life's purpose, my life's work. That's why I founded Lauren's Kids, a foundation dedicated to the protection of childhood and prevention of abuse. Because what comes naturally to most, a visit to the dentist, a hug, kiss, or caress, can send me down a path where I, the 31-year-old thriving survivor you see in front of you, is simply not recognizable. If I'm walking down the street, one simple smell, a single smell out of the blue can trigger a flashback, a movie I cannot turn off or escape. I have to remind myself, talk to myself to stop me from spiraling back to that place when I was a powerless child, in way over my head, too afraid to use my voice, and remind myself that today I am 31, whole and safe. Why do I continually and consistently reveal these scars? The ones that may not be physically visible, but are very, very real. Because I'm unsure I'm able to create life or carry a child to term. Though my husband and I are trying hard, that choice may have been taken from me, from us. And the trying, even though it may be fun, is also a challenge. It can be triggering during something so special, so sacred. Waldy's face sometimes swims into focus. Because of the things I've experienced, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, screaming and clawing my way out of the darkness, fighting to stay alive, fighting to stay safe, and to escape her. But then I'm pulled from the darkness, awakened by my husband, and reminded and reassured I am safe in our bed, next to a man who loves me more than all the stars in the sky and fish in the sea, that I'm okay. I'm having another night terror, one of many before, and many I am unfortunately certain are yet to come. So I ask myself, and I'll let you ask me again, why do I do what I do? Because I want to be a part of worldwide systemic change in which we can and do teach our children how to be safe. Because if it means saving one child like me, letting them know that it's okay to tell and that it's okay to heal, then it's worth it. That's my why. This advocate will fight until she has no breath left in her body to make things different for kids like me and millions living across the globe. Because I know each and every one of us in this room and beyond would agree it shouldn't hurt to be a child, and all too often it does. Maya Angelou, who is also a survivor, said, "We delight in the beauty of a butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." Some of the most incredible and impactful people I know have also survived some sort of trauma and lived to tell about it. For many, it's this place of unthinkable pain that's become the X, that's driven them to create some sort of pivotal and incredibly meaningful change. They've had to dig deep, asking, seeking, questioning, and discovering the why to be as effective as possible and true agents of positive, sustainable change. So before I leave you, I have some final thoughts on finding your X and why, lessons for current and future world changers in this room and beyond. Face your dark. Don't run from dark places. Don't be afraid to dig into the painful and uncomfortable things you've experienced and to ask why. That just could be where you find your power, your X. Remember, your story is unlike anyone else's. Embrace it. Let it empower you. Be authentic, even with vulnerabilities. Not everyone will get you. Not everyone will like you. Accept that. It does not matter. Use your power to change the world in ways that are meaningful to you. Decide what is unacceptable in your world or your life that you can change, and change that because you can. Find your X, recruit a team to make your vision a reality. Get other people excited and ask why with you. If you would have asked that 11-year-old little girl in oversized overalls and fear in her heart if she'd be standing in front of you, a crowd of academics and professionals, of learners, leaders, and doers, and probably more survivors than any of us would care to realize. I'm not sure that she'd believe it to be possible, but she had no idea her abuse would become her ex, her driving force, or that it would transform into something new, advocacy, rooted in the continued need to find the why. So what's my Z? Stay tuned. We've covered A, F, I, V, P, T, S, D, and X. So for now, let's all stick to digging a little deeper and challenging ourselves to ask why.